Hello again, fight fans. It's Sunday morning. I'm enjoying my coffee in my very handsome Montero unboxing coffee mug. Admit it, you want one. Even the haters want one. So you can spit in it. Every day you can spit on Michael Montero. The guy you love to hate. But seriously, after watching all the action last night, all the great fights, particularly the rematch between Frampton and Santa Cruz, I got to thinking January has been a very, very good month for PBC, for Al Heyman, and they deserve a lot of credit. This is absolutely, January 2017 is absolutely the best month in PBC's history. And it's one of the better months I think Al Heyman has had in his career. I won't say it's the best month of his entire boxing career, but it's up there. Right? You had two really, really good cards. You go back a couple of weeks, the fight between Badou Jack and James DeGale, and then that co-feature, which had a breakout performance with Gervonta Davis with his big win over Jose Pedraza. And then you fast forward a couple weeks to just last night. Well, obviously, Carl Frampton, Leo Santa Cruz, put on another good fight. For my money, it wasn't quite as good as the original, but it was still a very good fight. Very great crowd atmosphere. And then there was a great performance in the co-feature with Mikey Garcia's knockout of the year candidate over Dejan Zlaticanin. So two really, really good cards. But not just that. They had the case that was the lawsuit against them from Golden Boy Promotions was thrown out of court. Basically, the judge, another sip of coffee from my beautiful Montero unboxing coffee mug. Oh yeah, it's good. It's just better coming from such a handsome cup. Basically, the judge looked at that case and threw it out. He basically said, look, there's not enough here to send this thing to trial. That's going to cost both sides a ton of money to get a jury. It's going to cost the state money. It's going to cost everybody time. And there's much more important cases that I, as a judge, should be looking at and our citizens as jurors should be looking at. This is crap. Threw it out. So that's a big win for Al Heyman and the PBC and all the fighters that they have, that they represent, and all the promoters that they work with. And I think it's just a win for boxing because we can all get back to the business of boxing. Now, some of their business practices have improved during that lawsuit. They've cut expenditures, frivolous spending, and I think some of that wasn't tied to the lawsuit necessarily, but tied to just the money just running, just burning out, right? Of course, they still have tons of money, but they ran through way too much, way too soon. And then I think the lawsuit, they kind of had to pull back on the spending because lawsuits are expensive, man. Court proceedings are very expensive. So now that this is over, it'll be interesting to see where they go. But talking about the actual fights, the two main event fights, I thought Badou Jack beat James DeGale. I'm cool with the draw, it's fine, but I thought Badou Jack did enough to win that fight. I had him winning it by a round or two, honestly. I thought that he landed the harder shots and was just more consistent with his work. I think James DeGale, to a degree, has been a little exposed. There's just not, there's a lot of sizzle, not too much steak with James DeGale, and he needs to sit down, plant his shots better, tighten up his angles. I think his angles are too wide. I think his pivots and side steps are way too wide. I think he shoots too much from the outside with arm punches. Badou Jack could be a little more impressive though. He kind of just does one thing over and over and over. And that's fine if you're good at it, which he is, but he needs to step it up because he doesn't always impress judges. But for my money, that DeGale Jack fight was better than the Frampton-Santa Cruz rematch. And again, I think that was a good quality fight, but I just think that the ebb and flow from the Jack DeGale fight, the early knockdown, the late knockdown, and the back and forth, and that truly was a fight that was very, very close, right? I actually think that the judges scored the Santa Cruz Frampton, I guess I should say it that way, the Santa Cruz Frampton rematch a little too tight. I had it more one-sided on my card. Yeah, I'm drinking coffee while I'm doing a video. Shut up. Deal with it. I actually thought that Santa Cruz won 8, maybe even 9 rounds in that rematch. And I know that there's a lot of UK fans who are mad at me and were giving me some shit on Twitter for my scorecard. But I could live with a 117-111 scorecard in the favor of Leo Santa Cruz. I thought, when I saw that rematch, just the early first few rounds, I was thinking, man, where the hell has this Leo Santa Cruz been his entire career? For once, he was using his height. He was fighting with distance. He was not letting it get nasty on the inside. Frampton kept trying to lure him into that kind of fight where he could counterpunch him, because Frampton is still the sharper puncher, but he's really, really short and has really, really short arms, and he's going to have trouble at 126. He just, against tall, long guys who know how to use that distance, Frampton's going to struggle. He had a lot of problems getting inside of Santa Cruz's jab when Leo actually threw it with some authority. Now, Leo slowed down in the later rounds, and Frampton, to his credit, made some adjustments and did work his way inside and won some rounds. But the rounds that Frampton won on my card were very close rounds. Those early rounds that Santa Cruz won, he won wider. It was almost the direct opposite of what happened in the first fight. I thought Leo Santa Cruz won the first 5 rounds clearly. That's how I saw it. Now, some of you had, I think, some swing rounds in there, and one of them might have been the 4th or 5th round. Don't quote me on that, but I know that there were several swing rounds where, again, it's one of those things where if you split the swing rounds, let's say there were 6 swing rounds, and you give 3 to Frampton and 3 to Santa Cruz, then it's a tight fight. But if you give more of those swing rounds to Leo Santa Cruz, he wins this fight clearly, decisively. Now, the crowd atmosphere at that rematch was great. And there was 4,000 to 5,000 UK fans who came over. And look, PBC events, they give away free tickets, right? They paper arenas. But those folks who were coming from across the pond, as they say, they weren't getting freebies. They were paying for their tickets. So there was 4,000 to 5,000 fans who paid full price for their tickets to come over, unless a few of them were whales and got a deal through the MGM Grand, which does happen. You know, there's packages and stuff like that. But they were paying for those tickets. So they say there was about 10,000 at the MGM Grand for that fight. And, you know, who knows how many of those were comps or discounts or whatever, but you know at least half of those tickets were sold face value. So that's a good crowd compared to a lot of PBC events. I still don't know if this is necessarily a Vegas fight. I think they could have done it in a better location. And obviously they probably paid Carl Frampton more to get him to come over to the US, because he obviously wanted it over in Belfast, and he deserved to have it over there. Over there, you're probably talking a crowd of 20,000 or more, and it would have been even better of an atmosphere. But all that being said, Leo Santa Cruz, he got better. Sometimes a loss makes a fighter better. And too many of you out there, particularly American boxing fans, and something I noticed with younger under 30 boxing fans, particularly those who got into boxing through Floyd Mayweather and guys like that, you rate O's too highly. You saw such a difference, such an improvement in Leo Santa Cruz in this rematch from that first fight. And if he fights like this, look, he got away with fighting the way he fought before, just kind of flailing away on the inside and throwing a loose jab that had nothing on it, because he wasn't fighting elite level fighters. And I know some of you will say, well, he fought Abner Mares. Look, Abner Mares is a good fighter, and in his prime, he was elite. He's not that guy anymore. And just styles make fights. And Leo can fight a little sloppy and still beat a guy with the style Abner Mares has. But against a Carl Frampton, who's a on-the-border bubble pound-for-pound guy. He's off my pound-for-pound list now. I had him at number 10, and he's off now. But he's still an elite, good fighter, an athletic fighter. Against a fighter like that, Leo's going to have to fight this way. Stay on the inside, use his height, jab with authority, and don't get lured into a war on the inside, because that's where he can be countered. Because his shots do get wide, and he's not the fastest guy, at least with his feet. He can't get in and out like that. So we saw an improved fighter, man, and he's one of the best now at 126 pounds. They're probably going to do a rubber match, and Leo Santa Cruz is going to want it in LA, and he's probably going to get his way. So that fight might be in Los Angeles, but money might dictate it goes back to Las Vegas. Either way, that's LA or Vegas for that rubber match. Frampton says he wants it in Belfast. That ain't happening, right? So I would prefer it be in Los Angeles, but it might go back to Las Vegas. Either way, a third fight, I welcome it. But now I'm starting to wonder, can Carl Frampton make the adjustments he needs to make to win a rubber match? And I'm not so sure. I am not so sure. We saw Leo make the adjustments he needed to make, and all he really did was utilize the natural height and reach advantage he had over Frampton. That's all he did, and he did it well. Frampton, he's always going to be shorter. It's always going to be harder for him to get on the inside. I think he could use feints more, and he could maybe sit down on his punches more. But that also means he's going to have to eat some leather to get in. So I don't know if we're going to see anything different in the rubber match. But it's still going to be fun. So I welcome it. Bring it on. But back to PBC. If I had one criticism of what they did in January, it's that these fights weren't on free TV, right? Premier Boxing Champion's whole slug line, their whole tagline is, free boxing for all. Well, both of these fights were on Showtime. And again, I go back to the lawsuit. Maybe that was part of it because they get paid with these Showtime cards, and maybe they needed that money right now while they're going through the lawsuit. Okay. But I give them a pass, man, because these were two good fights on Showtime. I'm just looking, I got my laptop over here, and I'm looking at their schedule coming up. Now, they got a few fights here in February on not necessarily free TV, but regular cable, where you get the whole cable package for like $40 or whatever it is. They've got a Fox Sports 1 card here. They got one on Bounce. I don't know where the hell Bounce TV is. Their February schedule, it is run-of-the-mill PBC stuff. Vasquez, Colazzo, Easter and Cruz, Warren, Zakianov. And then on February 18th, on Showtime, Broner Granados. A lot of people are high on this fight. I look at this matchup and the styles, and I think Broner is going to win this fight rather decisively. Unless Broner has fallen off the wagon completely, I think he controls this fight, and it's fairly... there's going to be some ebb and flow, but I think it could be a 9-3 kind of fight. What's going to make this fight fun for me is that it's in the Cintas Center in Cincinnati, where, of course, Broner is from. All his homies from the bowling alley, they're going to be out there. It's going to be fun for the atmosphere. But the fight itself, a lot of people are high on this one. I don't see this as a great two-way action, close competitive fight. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. But it's on Showtime again. After that, a few days after that, Flores again on Fox Sports 1. Then we get to February 25th, and we have a good card here on Fox. Free TV, the first real free TV card for PBC this year. Deontay Wilder was supposed to fight this Polish fighter, Andrzej Wawrzyk, who just tested positive for a steroid. What is with Deontay Wilder opponents testing positive for shit? Man, the guy can't find a clean fighter. They keep looking in one part of the world, and it's like maybe they just need to look somewhere else. I know that Gerald Washington had a fight that was supposed to be scheduled a couple months out, and he really wants Deontay Wilder. Maybe they need to make that happen. 2 undefeated American heavyweights, 2 big guys. Let's do that. Let's see Deontay Wilder and Gerald Washington. I know Gerald Washington's side wants it because I asked him about it while I was at the Henry Armstrong Foundation, while I was on the Henry Armstrong Foundation float at the Martin Luther King, the Kingdom Day Parade here in Los Angeles just a couple weeks ago. He wants that fight, so why not make it happen? But the co-feature on that card, Harrison versus Hurd, that's a very good co-feature fight. And then Dominic Breazeale makes his return. I think that that's a very good free TV card. And then just a week later, you got the granddaddy of all PBC fights so far. I think on paper, this is the biggest matchup in their history. Keith Thurman versus Danny Garcia, and that's on CBS. So not a lot of good action on free TV the first couple months, but you get to February 25th, and then a week later, March 4th, Fox and CBS, those are two very good cards. So let's give PBC credit for having a great month, January 2017. Winning, they're definitely kicking some ass this month. Not necessarily on free TV, free boxing, but two very, very good cards. And by the way, I forgot to talk about Mikey Garcia and Gervonta Davis, the two co-features in those two PBC fights. So Gervonta Davis, of course, has that breakout knockout performance. He's in a loaded division at 130 pounds. And HBO just had two 130-pound fights last night, two grueling fights. And the matchups that have been made between those fighters, like Takashi Miura and Francisco Vargas, Orlando Salido, you could throw him in there. They've been the types of fights that wear guys down. Those guys are wearing down, and they make for great fights. But Gervonta Davis, he's so young and fresh, he could probably snatch one of these titles or make at least for a very good fight with one of these older guys. I just don't know if a fight like that could be made for political reasons. But those guys are all looking for money fights right now. For Davis, people were talking about him fighting Lomachenko and guys like that. Nowhere near ready. He's absolutely a player and a rising star at 130, but let that guy develop, man. Let him get a couple fights under his belt through the remainder of 2017 before we start demanding he fight guys like Vasyl Lomachenko, who are just on a whole other stratosphere. Now, for Mikey Garcia in his win over Dejan Zlaticanin, on paper, this was a very competitive fight because Mikey Garcia has been so inactive, and we didn't know if he had anything left, anything comparable to what he was left. I think you guys saw, with just my tweets and just some of my videos, what I was saying is that if Mikey Garcia is anywhere near the level he was a few years ago when he was on pound for pound list, he should dominate and beat Zlaticanin. And that's just what he did. And now looking at the fight, this was matchmaking 101. Great performance by Mikey Garcia. He absolutely did what he needed to do, and he did it in emphatic fashion. Great win, great performance, knockout of the year candidate. I think it'll be bested, but it absolutely will be a top 10 candidate by the end of the year. But Zlaticanin was made to order for him. He came straight in. There was zero head movement. I tweeted out during the fight, how do you say head movement, feints, and angles in Montenegrin? Because somebody needed to tell him to do that shit. He was coming straight in and just eating straight, beautiful counter shot. They weren't even counter shots because Zlaticanin wasn't throwing anything. But for Garcia, it was just 1-2, 1-1-2, 1-2, 1-1-2, over and over. And Zlaticanin was saying, yeah, bring it on, I can take it. No, you can't take shots like that, especially from a taller guy punching with proper leverage. And it looked like a lightweight versus a featherweight in there. Just the size difference between these guys. It was just a matter of time. So great performance, but some of you have been upset because I criticized Zlatikanin's resume, and I said his resume was unproven, or there was a lot of question marks, or it wasn't that good. He hasn't really faced anybody, and some of you question that because he beat Ricky Burns, he beat Peter Petrov. Look, Petrov is a good quality, scrappy fighter. So is Ricky Burns. But Ricky Burns has won 2 titles. And some of you are out there calling him a 2-time champion. A champion of 2 different weight divisions. He's never been a champion. He's a 2-time titleist. He's grabbed titles. And the current title he owns is paper. It's paper thin. Okay? My beautiful Montero unboxing mug weighs more than that damn title belt. He's a good fighter who has benefited from good matchmaking to get him titles. And his promoter has done an excellent job for him. And I'm not saying he's trash. And Peter Petrov, he's gotten better as he's gotten older, and he's got some quality wins too. But wins over those 2 guys don't make you an elite level fighter, okay? And that's all I'm saying. Zlaticanin is a good quality fighter, but he's in that bubble. he's at that level with guys like Petrov. Petrov actually would beat Zlaticanin now if they fought. I think that he's really improved. Burns, that just depends where the fight is, if it's in the UK or somewhere else. But he's at that level. Mikey Garcia is just at another level. And this matchup was just very good matchmaking by his people. And, of course, 2020 hindsight, it is what it is. Great performance by Garcia, but am I ready to put him up on pound for pound list again? I don't know. He's on the bubble. You could maybe put him in at number 10 or something like that, number 9 or 10, but he's nowhere near the top 5. He's not up there with some of the other guys yet. He's still got to do a little bit more, in my opinion. But man, he's back in a big way. And Showtime just bought the rights to the rematch between George Linares and Anthony Crolla. That's going to be a fun fight. The winner of that fight has a title. Let's see Mikey Garcia and the winner of that fight unify titles. Winner of that fight, yeah, then you're talking pound for pound. Then you're talking back in the sport in a big way, an elite level guy that can start making demands. Now, some of you out there have said, what about Garcia and Vasyl Lomachenko? Pump the brakes, okay? Again, Garcia's got to do a little bit more. Let him clean out 135 pounds. And let's be real, Lomachenko's got to do a little bit more. Let's see Lomachenko clean out 130 pounds. Let's see these two guys clear out their divisions and prove that they are the top guy. We all think they are. We think Mikey Garcia is clearly the best lightweight. We think Vasyl Lomachenko is clearly the best junior lightweight. Let's see them prove that. Let's see them prove that with credentials, okay? More than the eye test, more than impressive performances over guys that just were made to order for them. Let's see them prove it with titles and unification and consistency over the next year or so. And then, yeah, those two guys fighting at 135 in late 2018 or something, who doesn't love that fight? Especially if at that point they've collected a bunch of titles and further proven themselves. Hell, man, the winner of that fight, a year or so from now, that might be for the number 1 pound for pound spot in boxing. Let's be real. But it's premature talk, guys. Let it develop. Be patient. Patience! Speaking of, be patient while I take another sip. Have I lost you yet? I'm just drinking coffee. Goddamn, shut up. For 126, now you got a rubber match between Leo Santa Cruz and Carl Frampton, right? They still have unfinished business. It makes sense for them to go at it again. Lee Selby, who was supposed to fight on this card, I'm gutted for him, man. He's out $100,000 payday because his opponent couldn't clear medical tests. All of a sudden, I think the rumor is it was hepatitis. I haven't looked too much into it since that happened Friday. Of course, it's Sunday morning when I'm filming this. If you guys have seen or heard anything further since then, let me know. Comment below and let me know what's going on. I just haven't caught up with all that yet. But they were saying hepatitis. Look, I think the Nevada State Athletic Commission dropped the ball big time on this one. I think that the IBF, the sanctioning organization, dropped the ball on this one. And they're usually pretty on point with this stuff. I think that Lee Selby and his people, they need to be compensated in some way, shape, or form. They need to be compensated. Training camp and then travel and the cost of staying out there, all of that, man, that adds up. It adds up a lot. And then you're talking $100,000 payday that he's out now. And there are apparently several hundred fans, his fans, that went just to see him, who made the trip. Man, I feel horrible for those guys. That's got to suck. But I bring Lee Selby's name up not just for that. It's for the obvious. The winner of a Frampton-Santa Cruz rubber match, why not unify titles with Lee Selby? Particularly if the winner is willing to travel over to the UK, where Lee Selby's a name. Here in the United States, not really a name, but if Selby is proven he's willing to travel to America, right? He was going to do it for this card, so maybe he would come back to America to face the winner of that fight. Of course, he's going to have to be paid more than $100,000 to do that. But of course, Abner Mares is back in. He's back in business, so maybe, he would factor in as well. If Leo Santa Cruz were to win the rubber match, you got Abner Mares. So there's options, man. 126 pounds to 135 pounds. There are a ton of matchups that can be made on both networks, HBO and Showtime, but particularly Showtime. They've got the fighters, the majority of the fighters. Now, I think the best fighter between all those weights, Vasyl Lomachenko, is the HBO guy. HBO is in a position, again, where they've got probably the best fighter, but not necessarily the best opponents for him to face down the line. So the two players, the two networks are going to have to work together to eventually get this thing all settled at the very, very top. And again, that's probably that Lomachenko-Garcia fight 18 months, 24 months from now. But right now, there's enough players at both networks. You know, you talk about 130 pounds with Berchelt, who just beat Francisco Vargas. And, you know, I told you guys he was a live dog in that one. Vargas has just been in too many wars. The eyes, man, he looks like the fly now when he fights. He just can't keep up. But you got Berchelt, you still got Francisco Vargas if he wants in, you got Orlando Salido, you got Takashi Miura, of course you got Vasyl Lomachenko. There's a ton of fights that could be made there. Any combination of those guys, throw it on. There's a doubleheader at StubHub Center right here in LA this summer. I'm there. That's a great, great card. So, and then you got all the guys on Showtime. So both networks are in a good position in these weight classes. Hopefully cooler heads prevail. The fights that need to happen. And then at the very, very top, we get that big pay-per-view matchup down the line. There's so much good stuff happening. 126 to 135 is the gift that keeps on giving. But back to the original point, and then I'll shut up with my rant. PBC, Al Heyman. They had a great, great month, January 2017, and they deserve credit for it. You guys know I've been critical, but I give credit where credit is due. And they kicked ass this month, and they're lined up for some good things down the line this first quarter of 2017. Let's see if they can keep it up.